It's the Easter weekend, or on the Jewish calendar, Passover. And Passover is a time to plunder. Now, this is probably a new thought to you. Sometimes when you're waiting and hoping that God will restore you, you find it difficult to believe the promises that he gives you. And as I was coming through some reading this Passover week, I came across a miracle that happened in that first Passover, and I wanted to share it with you online. Exodus 12, verses 35 and 36. Here's the miracle. The Israelites acted in accordance with the word of Moses, and they asked the Egyptians for articles of silver, gold, and clothing. The Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they gave them what they asked. So they plundered the Egyptians of those things. Exodus 12, 35, 36. Now, plunder means to strip of belongings. This was not done by force. When the Israelites asked the Egyptians, they willingly turned over their valuables. The Israelites acted in accordance with Moses' word. Now, here's the miracle. What word was that? Well, a good time before, when God called Moses out of the burning bush. Remember, there was a bush on fire, looked as though it was on fire, but wasn't being consumed. And Moses, who was a shepherd, he looked at this bush in amazement, and God spoke to him out of the bush. This is in Exodus 3, verse 22. This is what God said. I will reach out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, which I shall do in the midst of it. And after that, he will let you go. And I will grant this people favor and respect in the sight of the Egyptians. Therefore, it shall be that when you go, listen up, you will not go empty-handed. Every woman shall insistently ask her neighbour, and any woman living in her house, for articles of silver, gold, and clothing, and you shall put them on your children, your sons and your daughters. And in this way you are to plunder the Egyptians, leaving bondage with great possessions that are rightfully yours. God gave that promise to Moses at the burning bush, and that promise came to pass when they left. Now, when the Exodus actually happened, the Egyptians were so happy to see the Israelites leave. If it meant giving them expensive stuff, then so be it. You see, when God tells us something ahead of time, although we might have a what if this, that was Moses' reaction in Exodus 4 verse 1, what if, don't think like that. If God declares something ahead of time, it will happen. He told Abraham 400 years before that this would happen, and that's recorded in Genesis 16. God knows ahead of time. You read those couple of verses in Genesis 16, 13 and 14. So what about us? Some of you, as you're listening to me today, are going through tough times financially. Maybe you're in bad debt. If you're in a poor state, like I was when I arrived in France in July 1991, I had no money or little money. My car was parked in Aix-en-Provence. It was broken into. Happily, the thieves did not take my money. I had the loan of a flat for 2 weeks, and then what? I didn't know. But I had a top flat in Marseille on a busy boulevard with ambulance sirens constantly blaring, kept me awake at night, and the Lord gave me a promise. I will restore you, and you shall eat in plenty and be satisfied and praise the name of the Lord. Joel 2, 25, 26. I bought a big piece of paper, wrote that promise on the paper and stuck it on the door. All around me was evidence that this would not and could not happen. But as Jesus said in Matthew 9, 26, with men, yes, it's impossible. But with God, all things are possible. I have that scripture now in my entrance hall in the house I've got now on a carved wooden plaque to remind me. When the Egyptians followed the Jews across the Red Sea, they realized something, that God was fighting for the Israelites because he took their chariot wheels off. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from Israel because the Lord's fighting for them." Exodus 14:25. Even in bad times, God is still fighting for us. This is a great realization. Even during the worst time of my life, about 30 years ago, God blessed me with work when there was no work, favor everywhere I went, divine protection from even being killed on a street called Paradise. That's another story. Where are you now in your journey? Maybe you've made plenty of mistakes and are suffering consequences. But comfort yourself with King David's song of confidence, Psalm 27. I can't read all of it, I'll just give you a couple of verses. Although my father forsook me, which my father did when I was 6 months old, although my father forsook me, yet the Lord adopted me as his child. What would have become of me had I not believed that I would see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living? Psalm 27:10 and 11. Now, I've been teaching on restoration. Perhaps you're in a different place down your road than I was when I came to France, but whether you are or not, Passover should be a time to rejoice. Not just in the Paschal Lamb, but it's time to get your stuff back. It's time to plunder. So let's make a decree. We have a destiny. Psalm 139 verse 16 is our destiny. There's a book written. We've got to get our stuff back. Let's make a decree together. It's in the notes there. Father, I see how your people plundered their enemies as they came out of slavery. You are no respecter of persons, and I decree that goods, reputations, children, all that I lost, I will see your hand bringing it back. Like David, I trust your plan, and I know it's a good plan. Jeremiah 29:11. So do read the whole of that psalm, Psalm 27, and rejoice with David. He was full of confidence. Be full of confidence. What God has told you will come to pass.